One of the questions that I'm being asked at the moment is where this situation might lead. We are looking at the moment at the prospect of a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas via the Gaza conflict, but there are deeper, more fundamental questions that will remain even if that conflict draws to a close. I'm reporting today from the Sheikh Jarrah neighbourhood, which you can see behind me. This has been one of the flashpoints in the violence that we've seen in East Jerusalem over the past couple of weeks. This is a Palestinian neighbourhood in East Jerusalem. East Jerusalem, of course, is claimed by Palestinians as their own capital. And what's happening is that Israel is trying to evict at least a dozen families from this neighbourhood and replace them with settlers. There have been widespread protests over this, not just in Israel and the Palestinian territories, but beyond. And it was quite a significant factor in the protests and some of the violence which has broken out in recent weeks. Many Palestinians are deeply concerned that this could be an attempt by Israel to try and clear Palestinians from the neighbourhood and expand the Israeli presence in what is essentially a disputed territory. Israel has sought to play down the significance of the row in Sheikh Jarrah, which it has described as a real estate dispute between private parties. We may see more discussion about places like Sheikh Jarrah in the weeks to come if there is going to be a substantive discussion among world leaders about how a Gaza conflict or indeed violence in East Jerusalem, Israel and the West Bank can be avoided again. The Al-Aqsa Mosque is another important issue. During the month of Ramadan, the Israeli police faced a lot of criticism, not just for throwing stun grenades into the mosque itself, which is the third holiest site in Islam, but also restricting access to Damascus Gate, where many Muslims gather to break their fast in the evenings during Ramadan. And the Israeli police has faced criticism for what is said to be an excessive and disproportionate use of force in those parts of the old city. Again, something that could be on the table if there are going to be formal Israeli-Palestinian peace talks that perhaps would be overseen by the United States. And we will just have to wait and see where things go. I think my sense on the ground at the moment is that there's very little hope, unfortunately, that the Gaza war is going to be an impetus to really revisit some of those fundamental issues that surround statehood for the Palestinians, and also the balancing act between Israel's right to defend itself and not resorting to excessive force. But it could be that Joe Biden is ready to do that. So far, he's been focusing on the coronavirus pandemic over in the United States, but he's facing pressure from within his own Democrat Party to take a tougher stance on Israel and become more involved in Middle Eastern politics. It is possibly something that we could be seeing further down the line. For the time being, though, unfortunately, as I said, the conflict in Gaza continues. Still a lot of tensions in places here like Sheikh Jarrah, and we're just going to have to wait and see and hope that things may calm down in the near future.